Hello, beautiful. You're looking fabulous. Happy
I'll
Hump
take that.
Day.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. You're looking really lovely.
Good. Thank you so much for complimenting me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so, is there a particular reason you look so lovely?
Okay, you're gonna force it out on me. Yes, so I managed to as you know, I've been getting back onto the dating scene, the online dating scene, and yes, there's a date coming up later today. So thought I'd make an effort. First impressions count.
Oh,
And yeah, we'll
right,
see how it
right.
goes. Maybe I'll give you an update in the next episode.
Maybe. I would be liking to hear that one. Okay, well,
What are we
uh,
discussing today, Tracy?
well, uh, oh yes, it's me. Well, pick this story because actually, I just didn't even know this was a practice that still happened. So a few weeks ago, or like quite a few weeks ago, like a month ago even, there's a story that's in the UK, a new law to ban all forms of conversion therapy in England and Wales will include practices aimed at transgender people. So first of all, I didn't even realize this was still a thing, conversion therapy. And essentially what it is its purpose is to fix people who are identify as homosexual.
Sounds very medieval. Medieval.
Yes, and actually, I don't know if you've seen that film. I can't remember the name of the film with like what's his name, Humperback or Humperdinck or what's his name?
Oh, Benedict
Yeah,
Cumberbatch.
that one.
No, let's.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
I'm what they call a Cumber bitch.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, but his
All
female
right.
fans are called Cumber bitches.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm obviously not a fan because I can't even get his name right. But okay. He was in a movie where he's really like a genius and he's decoding. I can't remember, Enigma or something. Decoding in the
Yes,
Second World War. What's that movie called?
it might actually be called Enigma.
Enigma.
You're right.
Well, yeah. So he's homosexual. And at the end, I think he gets charged, he gets for indecency. And then what was part of the law then was it was like chemical castration.
Wow.
What they did to fix you, well, specifically men, from this, whatever, to stop you the crime, but, to fix your homosexuality. And I just thought that was such a horrendous part of history. But yeah, it happened then.
Which era was this film setting? Was it 1950s, 1960s?
Well, whenever the movie was it was the
I
Second World
haven't
War.
watched a movie, but I remember seeing the trailer, and I think maybe it's around 40s, 50s, 60s, and it's quite surprising really that the attitude was still as it was back then, and we've come so far. So
Yeah, it's really scary to think that they used to do that to people. It's so inhumane. So anyway, the fact that something still happens, and I can imagine it's more, I don't know, I absolutely don't know, but I'm guessing it's around changing your thinking and changing your attraction to the same sex through the types of strategies I would use in coaching to help people change their thinking towards things that aren't working for them. For example, overeating, emotional eating, smoking, whatever, or behavior.
So this conversion therapy in the UK that's been happening recently has so it's been operating on a psychological level.
I think I honestly don't know 100% because I just don't know enough about it. But I've seen like documentaries where I remember seeing a documentary once. I think it was that Louis Theroux. He's really fantastic. Where they talk about what they do, or it was all about, yeah, conversion therapy. So, but it was years ago. So that's why I'm really surprised it was still a thing. Where it's a lot of psychological things they do. Yes.
Yeah, it must be quite underground because obviously the ethics around this because either, and it'd be interesting to kind of know about, is it individuals who are seeking this conversion therapy themselves because they're struggling with their identity, or would it be the families and friends that put this individual's name forward for therapy?
Well, I remember the documentary. It was both, and it was very, very big in the religious communities,
Right,
where it was seen as a sin and an abomination and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, I can understand that part of things, because I know with the Indian community, there's a lot of woo-woo rituals which are part of what's claimed to be the religion, which is a shame, really, because there's nothing written in Vedic scripture around that. Hinduism here, but yeah, there's even to this day there's still woo-woo style practices that that are given validity under religion, and that's not exactly right.
No. Well, anyway, I should maybe read some of this. So it says a new law to ban all forms of conversion therapy in England and Wales. That was a story in itself, but the fact that it includes practices aimed at transgender people, I didn't realize that was a distinction, but obviously it is. So the ban will outlaw attempts to change someone's sexuality or gender identity, which is wonderful. Mental health groups have warned all types of conversion therapy are unethical and potentially harmful. The government had previously said transgender conversion therapy would not be included in the ban. But obviously they've changed their minds. So that was mainly what they're doing. And then there is, what is conversion therapy? What is conversion therapy?
Or what does it say? What's the definition?
Let me just quickly have a look what it says. Because that's another story. According to the British Psychological Society, conversion therapy, sometimes called reparative, like a repairing something, therapy, or gay cure therapy, tries to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. In practice, it means trying to stop or suppress someone from being gay or from identifying as a different gender to their sex recorded at birth. It can include talking therapies and prayer, but more extreme forms include exorcism, physical violence, and food deprivation. Wow. The British Psychological Society.
That physical side is basically torture through, it's basically changing your mind through torture.
Pretty much. Well, it's probably, what I would call negative anchor. So it's probably when you get a thought or an urge, you're going to get that kind of torture, basically.
Therapy, basically. So
it's really bad. So then even when you leave, if you have that urge or thing, it's going to associate it with that treatment, that pain. Anyway, the British Psychological... it's horrendous. It's like you're allowed to do that, but then some people put themselves through that intentionally.
That's why I was asking. That's what I was asking about. It'd be interesting to see, like, if there were individuals who actually put themselves through this.
They absolutely do. I know this is not it's not a fact-based TV program, but I watched and I love this show, Call the Midwife. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I love this show.
It's a type of show where it's Sunday afternoon and you just want to chill, or you're getting over a hangover, you switch the TV on and boom, it's basically you fall into Call the Midwife.
I love it.
It's just, and you just can't be bothered to turn the channel over. So.
Well, I just love it. I would intentionally watch it. But anyway, there was an episode similarly where a man put himself through it. And it was because his motives were driven by society. It was actually illegal for a start to be gay in that time, when they were in that time of the story, and his parents were not approving. Society obviously wasn't approving, the law wasn't approving, and so he really believed there was something wrong with him.
And I think that the time that you're mentioning it, actually, I think it's at the same time as Benedict Cumberbatch's Enigma happened. So happened at the same time.
So there were people putting themselves through that, and I imagine this, even today people still do, because of those kind of societal pressures, even though it's it's not an illegal thing now.
It's a shame. It is a shame that, because it's a shame because there are support groups, there is help for people, individuals struggling with this, and like compared to, you know, back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and dare I say even 70s, you know, there wasn't that much support out there. And now there are so many groups out there where there is help for individuals, and it's such a shame that an individual would feel the need to put themselves through this level of extreme torture, as opposed to reaching out for help with a support group who are going to be there for them.
Yeah. And you can understand how people find themselves in that situation where their culture or their society or their beliefs fundamentally disagree with how they behave. You don't have to identify as gay to understand how that might feel, because a lot of cultures play out how you should behave if you belong to this culture. And that's, so you can also understand why people will put themselves through that if they buy into that, which a lot of people do, because they want to feel like they belong and they don't want to be rejected by the culture or the society. So you can partly identify with that feeling to kind of understand why someone might choose that path.
Yeah. There's always support. There is always support.
Absolutely. So, and then what was interesting was, for me, is why weren't trans people covered by earlier versions? That's what it says.
Yeah, that was so strange when you were reading that out, Tracy. I was thinking about why has the government made a distinction there and then backtracked?
Well, it says the government previously said banning conversion therapy practice related to gender identity was complex, required further work. It warned of unintended consequences, which might affect teachers, parents, and therapists helping children who are struggling with their gender identity.
Okay, I understand what we're saying now. Yeah, because there's always been this, I think it's an ongoing discussion around about what age what age are you able to identify as, you know, being ready to go through your trans journey. So I know there's been lots of documentaries, there's been lots of coverage around children as young as 5 or 6 and voicing that they don't feel comfortable in their body, but there's been the actual physical help has been paused until they come of age, and whether or not that's ethical or not, and at what age is coming of age? Is it 16? Is it 18? Is it 21? 30?
Yeah, see, I still don't understand why you would ban the practice of conversion therapy. I mean, why you would exclude them even with that? I don't, maybe I'm just missing something. How does that connect?
Some people would argue, oh, in a couple of years' time, that 6-year-old won't be feeling like this.
I get that, but what's that got to do with conversion therapy?
So with conversion therapy, you know how the article was saying about about children and how there may be repercussions or consequences around children, for example. That's, well, I suppose what I'm trying to describe is that that's one of the consequences that could come up, whereby if there's a 6-year-old and they express that they're uncomfortable in their own body, if they start conversion therapy at 6 years old, how do we know that if in a few years' time, when they're a little bit older, let's say 9 years old, they may not have those feelings of being uncomfortable in their own body?
Yeah, I get that, but why would you not ban conversion therapy? Because conversion therapy is different from changing your sex because you feel like a different gender.
Yeah. So this article was saying, sorry, I think I'm a bit confused. This article was saying that conversion therapy was to be banned.
Yes.
Yeah, for children. That's correct, right?
Well, they were saying the reason they didn't include transgender people was because of the complexity. And then they talk about children and teachers and blah, blah, blah. But I don't understand what the complexity is, even given what you're saying. Like, maybe someone thinks this and they get a bit older and they change their mind. That's fine. But what's that got to do with not banning conversion therapy, which would be to suppress their urges, basically?
So the government is saying that they're banning conversion therapy for that reason, for the reason to allow time to distinguish whether or not a person is going to be changing their mind or not. If conversion therapy was allowed for children, then it wouldn't. Then it wouldn't allow that option. That
But
time.
it shouldn't be allowed for children anyway, even if it was legal.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I understand that still. But anyway,
yeah.
The point is, they are banning it. Yes. Oh, but guess how common it is? Are you curious?
It's so religious. I think this is more appropriate for religious communities.
Well, this is what it says. How widespread is the practice? And the thing is, there's no standard legal definition, and victims may be reluctant to share their experiences. So, and that's the same with all stats.
But that also comes down to community. So community / religion, religious communities, like this conversion therapy sounds very much the practice which probably happens more likely in religious communities rather than in alternative therapy communities.
Well, this is in here. Do you want to tell you what it says?
Yeah.
About these communities.
Yeah.
So it says, obviously, all statistics are underreported because there'll be people that haven't been captured. But anyway, it says about 5% of the 108,000 people who responded to the survey said they had been offered some form of conversion therapy. So 5%, while 2% had actually undergone it. And those from ethnic minority backgrounds were more likely to be affected, as were people with religious faith.
Bingo, there we go.
There you go. So about 10%.
The point has been backed by the research.
Yeah, about 10% of Christian respondents and 20% of Muslims said they had undergone or been offered conversion therapy, compared to 6% of those with no religious background.
And that kind of makes sense. That kind of is logical, because as we were saying earlier about these small communities, they can be very closed. And even though there's support out there, like you were saying, Tracy, there's pressure to conform, and pressure to have that feeling of belonging. And so, and if it's a very closed community that's happening in, you're not going to pay much attention to the outside support groups that are there to help.
Yeah. So now it's just a matter of each, like Northern Ireland having to pass a similar thing. And then obviously it seems to be the only groups that are opposed to this are religious groups, which doesn't surprise me. So there's that. And then the other thing is that Australia seemed to be stepping up to do the same thing, because that recently made the news, where Australia, at least specifically New South Wales, because remember we've got state governments things happening here, also are saying to ban this. And there's this particular story about a guy called Chris who has tried a variety of gay conversion practices from the age of 16 years old.
Okay, well, that's an answer in itself. If you've tried several conversion therapies and they are not working, then surely that's a sign, as in like, mate, give it up, accept who you are, and live your life. Surely.
Well, yeah, he's obviously grew up in Christian faith, believing in God, and he believed he needed to be fixed. He was told that God had not made him that way, and there was a negative clause to his homosexuality, and he was broken and he needed to be fixed. So since the age of 16, he's attempted to heal his sexuality, including taking part in prayers, exorcisms, Christian counseling aimed at addressing the causes of his orientation, as well as suppression and abstinence. And 7 years after that, can you imagine what it was like? He struggled to heal from the damage caused by conversion therapies for more than a decade.
That's really sad.
It's very sad. But he has gone on to co-found a conversion therapy survivors group, which is beautiful. It's now welcoming the support of major parties. And then the Premier, Dominic Perrottet, on Friday gave the reform in principles. It's not actually happened. Backing on the first day of Sydney World Pride. He's saying there's no room for harmful practices, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, when the parliament returns, my government will provide in principle support for legislation that brings an end to any harmful practices. And he talks about it being complex, but it's not an absolute thing, but at least a conversation's happening. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So hopefully Australia will follow suit.
Yeah, well, that should be good. I mean, I haven't actually heard any cases of conversion therapy in New South Wales, but then again, I'm not in that community, so I may not necessarily be exposed to a lot of the news around this.
Well, you know, well, he's from New South Wales. He's from Sydney, this guy. So it happens.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not debating that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I know it's sad.
It happens. It's sad to hear of this gentleman's story, that he went through years of trying different variations of conversion therapy. But it's really heartwarming to hear that from his struggles, he's managed to reflect on these struggles and then turn it around, and obviously co-found a community where he can now share his experience and support and hear of other experiences very similar to what he has gone through. And it is a very individual experience, because like I said, you know, we don't often hear about conversion therapy, whether you live in New South Wales, Adelaide, Melbourne, or elsewhere. You know, well, this is are deemed as medieval.
Yeah. And we already talked about the festival celebrating LGBTQ plus Pride already kicked off. And it is a human rights conference, which I keep remembering to talk to you about. March across Sydney Harbour Bridge on the 5th of March. I won't be here, but never mind. That is tipped to attract 500,000 people. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, but it's really interesting because you know, if you hadn't raised this article, you know, I wouldn't even had thought the idea of conversion therapy. So it's great that, you know, we're introducing these new topics that we wouldn't necessarily always think about, or even thought to think they are still in practice today. So yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's just something you didn't realize goes on. But I guess if you're not closely linked to the LGBTQ plus community, so if you don't have friends or family part of that community, then potentially know less about it. I mean, like me, you know, I'm not saying I do have gay friends, but it's not something that ever comes up. It's just horrendous to think that it's okay to do that.
But let's just hope that we don't need to be talking about this, that topics such as conversion therapy will be a thing of the past.
True.
Yeah.
All right.
Great, yeah. And so I know we talked about it because of, obviously, it's World Pride Day, it's a massive stage. So another big stage that happened this week was the Super Bowl.
And I never watch it, but there's always a hype, right?
Yeah, I'm not into American football. To be honest with you, I don't even know which teams played. Or the only thing I really know about American football is Tom Brady, because he actually follows a spiritual path. And that's how I know of him. And I've heard lots of I've heard his conversations in documentaries that he's had when he talks about his spiritual path. So and he is the greatest American footballer of all time, apparently.
Okay.
So I don't know much about American football, but what I do know is that with American football, what happens February every year is that they have half time, and in these, I think it's about 30-minute or 40-minute segment, they basically have adverts, they have entertainment, and the companies that are able to buy the advertising time in that 40-minute segment, they have massive returns on investment. So, and they also basically, with the advertisements in that 40-minute period, they basically, they call in other celebs or famous faces, famous names, and yeah, they basically just kind of make fun of a particular product just to get it out there. But in this year's or in last week's performance, it was held by Rihanna, and who Rihanna hadn't performed on stage for about 6 years, I believe, and she definitely made headlines. Hence, I thought it'd be relevant for this podcast. The article that I'm choosing to
keep going.
Okay, all right. So the Super Bowl this year, its halftime entertainer was Rihanna, and Rihanna made the headlines, especially after this was her first performance after 6 years. The article that I'm reading from is The Guardian, and the headline that The Guardian chose to go with is "All hail Rihanna for turning a Super Bowl performance into the greatest pregnancy reveal yet." So I'll read on. Enforcing her audience to confront her physical reality, the pop star took ownership of her body, and she did it in real time. Here was a woman returning to work for the first time since having a baby, somehow converting this moment into a tightly controlled but highly visible moment, while putting paid to the difficult second pregnancy reveal. Enforcing her audience to confront her physical reality, Rihanna went past making a fashion statement. She took ownership of her body, and she did it in real time. So what that's basically describing is Rihanna's performance, where she came onto, it wasn't a stage, it was actually a platform which was elevated off the ground, and it was way up in the air as her performance went on. And as her performance went on, she actually revealed that she was pregnant with her second baby. And it was a very powerful performance, because it's quite a performance in itself, because she's actually entertaining, but she's also on a platform which is suspended in the air. And it was a great example of Rihanna showing that, you know, as a woman, she can still do her day job, and she can still be pregnant and have a baby at the same time. And, you know, it doesn't impact her, owning that show and basically just showing that she's a superstar, that she is. The article went on to say the Daily Mail called her shameless. Everyone else called her a pregnant businesswoman. So it's basically, this article is basically about how, you know, there may be women in the workplace who are either being, you know, who feel pressurized to maybe step down because of their pregnancy, or there may be obstacles whereby they can't do their work to the best of their abilities. But here's Rihanna, and she's basically showing us, reminding us actually, that it doesn't matter whether you're pregnant or you're not. It's like you can simply do your day job, and you're going to be you're going to have a superstar performance of it. So she didn't blink an eyelash about she was pregnant or not. She just put it out there, and it did not impact her performance one bit. And she gained a lot of respect, obviously, aside from the Daily Mail.
Yeah, like the Daily Mail, I haven't put that up there as one of the most, you know, valuable quality tabloids. But I will always be curious about what kind of things they say. But in any case, I actually, when you're talking about the story, and what I'm taking away from that is when we've talked in the past about mothers in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And the types of bias, and I mean unconscious as well. Like we talked about Jacinda Ardern. Should have declared her pregnancy. Why? She can work. She's entitled to, you know, parental leave, as any man would be as well. And usually, I mean, in today's workforce, usually the man and the woman have the same options to take a length of time off work. It's not specific to women. Like, they don't get longer necessarily. A man could take just as much time if he chose to want to be at home with his, you know, new child or whatever. So to think specifically that a woman who's having a baby versus a man who's also having a baby, to treat them differently in the workplace environment is a bias. And I was thinking, you were talking about, you know, you can still be pregnant, be having a baby and do your day job. But I was thinking more of along the lines of, you can still go for that next amazing project. You know, you can still climb the career ladder if that's what you want to do, and be pregnant and take a bit of a break or whatever. I think that's more the message I got that she's sending out there. But also, I mean, I didn't watch it, so I don't know. But it seems to me that she's not making a big deal out of the fact that she's pregnant. She's just turning up.
That's it. And that's what for me, the message about this article and the performance, because I did watch the performance live, was that it was, for me, I would describe it as a no exceptions performance. And what I mean by that is that Rihanna turned up after 6 years. She was going through a second pregnancy. She'd obviously been invited or been asked to perform at this halftime show. She didn't say no because she was pregnant. It was like, okay, well, she hasn't been on stage for 6 years, which is a great performance time. And so she said yes to it, regardless of whether or not she was pregnant or not. And then not only did she say yes to that, but she didn't just stand on the stage. The actual performance was she's on a it looked like a steel platform, which was held together by these 4 wires on each corner. And then she had a hook at the back of her dress or jacket, which harnessed her to the platform. And then as she was singing, it slowly raised up to the top of the stadium. So, and then it also went down. It went a few times, but also watching a performance. I've seen Rihanna's videos, and so some of the dance moves are quite famous. And you could see that because she was quite heavily pregnant, she wasn't able to physically get into those dance positions. But she did something as an alternative to protect her baby bump and also still obviously give a kick-ass performance. So for me, that was why it was a no exceptions performance.
She works within the limitations, because there's no arguing there's limitations when you're pregnant, like physically. Yeah, there's no arguments about that, but you can still work within them or work around them. And rather than not doing anything at all, rather than not turning up to work if you want to, not taking that promotion if you want to, or there's always another way. And the fact is, so many people have babies, and you kind of always find a way. Yeah, I like that. And actually, I heard news around it, like on the radio. I heard stuff, and I heard that she was afraid of heights, so that was extra special. And I also heard that nobody in her crew, like her dancers, her what do you call the manager? Agent or whatever, manager, he didn't even know she was pregnant. She'd been hiding it the whole time.
Right, I see. Yes, she's been very kind of undercover. I mean, there must have been rehearsals, and maybe that's when they found out. But you could definitely see that. Yeah, she'd obviously made she had to make slight differences to the dance routine, but even then the dance routine still looked so good. So so that's why I thought it'd be worthwhile sharing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. I like that. It's awesome. I like the story. All right, Rihanna, I didn't even know she was still going, but like you said, 6 years, just the first performance. I mean, they probably paid well. I'd be like, yeah, that's a college fund for child number 2.
But also with her, it's that song, that the umbrella Ella song. I mean, when she sang that, you can see once you bring that on to that, it doesn't matter whether or not you've been performing for 20 years or 40 years. If you get Rihanna on stage and she sings Ella, you're gonna get your money's worth.
Yeah, cool, awesome. All right, time for What Would You Do? We'll have to just come up with our own little tune, reproduce it. We could do a reggae version. What would a reggae version sound like?
You're tempted.
I'm not. Oh, silly girl. I was like, what would you do?
Come on, hit me with it. What have you got?
All right, I've got so yeah. All right, so what would you do? So this is in the context of hiring in the workplace again.
Yeah.
So you're hiring, you've got the candidates, and you're one of your colleagues says, this guy's going to be great, he's got so much potential, and then you've got this woman who has proven experience in the role that you're recruiting for. So he's advocating for the man with potential over the woman with experience. Does it matter? What would you do?
I would look at the bigger picture in that scenario of a man with strong potential versus a woman with proven experience. Because if there's a suggestion that the man should be hired, I'd be looking at a bigger picture in terms of, okay, on what basis, like what potential would the man be bringing to the role which this lady has not yet proven?
That's not the context. The context is he's never done the role, but he's got potential to do the role, and she's done the role.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. I see. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, in that case, it would be a case of, well, why would we, like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Why would you want to, why are we looking at, why are we looking at replacing a woman who's done a fabulous job so far? She's obviously proven herself and her skill set in this role.
Oh, it's not the same role. It's more like maybe she came from another company doing the same job. So they're both going for the same job.
Oh, right. I see. Okay. Right. Oh,
but,
okay. I see.
And this guy's not done the job, but he's got potential. Yeah. This woman's done the job.
Yeah.
Got experience.
Okay. Again, that would be bigger picture for me. So I'd be asking, okay, well, is it going to save us time and money? If we're looking to save time and money, then that's great. Let's go for a woman, because you know what, it's hit the ground running. We don't have to worry about that. She's proven her skill set. She can implicate ideas and solutions and work practices which she's clearly had success with previously. We don't have to worry about that. We're saving time and money. Whereas if we select the man, then we're going to be, it's seen more as an investment. Like, what are we looking to mold somebody in this role? Why would we be looking to put invest more time and money into the option with the person who happens to be a male in this option? So I'm not sure, Tracy, if this is actually a gender-led query or situation, should I say? Because let's turn it around and say, well, if there's a position and there's a woman with strong potential and a man who's got proven experience, I would also be saying the same thing. Let's look at the bigger picture.
Okay. Well, in what context would you pick somebody with potential over somebody with the actual experience?
In a case whereby if I was in a business where the business was looking to invest time and energy and money into a role whereby they wanted either some more input into the role, they wanted a change of direction in that role, or they wanted a new fresh pair of eyes, then it would be worthwhile seriously considering the person in this situation, the male. Whereas a person who's proven to do the role in another space but has applied for this position, I'd be thinking, okay, well, if I don't have time and money, I've got another area of business which I want to focus on. This woman who's got the proven experience would be ideal, because I can simply put her in the role and she can run with it. I can trust her. I can just basically just leave her to it because it's proven. Whereas someone who hasn't done a role but they have potential, you don't know what they're going to bring. You don't know how the dynamic of what they bring is going to alter all the other divisions in your organization. You don't even know which direction they're going to take, what kind of approach they're going to take, and that takes a lot of I suppose that time and energy, and also you're sacrificing money in that. And so it's more of a sacrifice. And if you've got time and energy, and that's where you want your company to be heading, then yes, it's worthwhile seriously considering the male with the potential. But if you want to save time and money and you want to invest in other parts of your business, then it's a no-brainer to get somebody who's done a role before and hasn't got proven success in that role and who's interested. So for me, it's not gender driven, because let's say if I turn it around, like I often do in these scenarios where I'm thinking, okay, well, if that was a woman in the man's position and vice versa, I would still be saying the same thing.
Okay, that's interesting. So if I'm thinking, I've not read the answers yet. So I'm thinking I'm hiring someone, usually, unless it's a junior role, It's for me, the only reason you would hire someone with potential is if it's a junior role. And as part of a promotion, right? And this is not promotion. So that would be, for me, that would be the only circumstances where I'd hire someone with potential. If it's a role where I want them to know what they're doing, because if you're hiring someone with potential, it's a lot of, like you say, time, money, energy, because you still have to train them. I mean, you have to train everyone, but you still have to train them a lot of hand-holding if they've never done the job before. Versus, I need somebody who can do this job. This person's got experience, they're interested. This person's got potential and they're interested. To me, it's a no-brainer. You choose the person with experience, not with potential, unless it's a junior role, because they're both going to bring fresh pair of eyes, regardless of potential or experience, because it's a different job. It's it's a more higher job or whatever.
But
so go on.
Sorry, Tracy, but it could be. I mean, I know you mentioned about it's applicable to a junior position, but maybe not. Let's say I've been in lots of positions or lots of companies I've been in where they've needed a head of a division, which includes that's executive leadership level. And there has been lots of times when there's been external candidates who may not necessarily have led a division, but have had experience in leading and managing teams.
Yeah, I get that.
Their next step up. But then there's also interest from other divisions of different companies, whereby it would be a sidestep, but it's a different industry. So it's like, so they don't. So in that example, which I'm applying to this, that's how I'm looking at it, is that it's somebody who has got potential, who's probably ready for that.
Yeah, I get it. Your situation's right as well. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is, what situation would I go with the experience over potential, or the two different situations? Like I said, if it was junior, I'm looking for somebody with potential. If it was, I want someone who can do the job, I'm looking for somebody with experience. So if we assume, because we don't know the context, so many bigger pictures, but the point that it's trying to make, let's assume this is for a job where you want somebody who knows what they're doing. Yet, the guy's advocating for someone with potential versus someone with experience. And if it was a common thing, but anyway, we don't know if it's a common thing. But anyway, why it matters, because you're right. It depends on the strategy of the company. It depends on the person with potential. What skills do they actually have? Are they transferable? And maybe that's why they have potential. I don't know.
What does the answer say?
The answer says, when a more experienced candidate is passed up, and actually, I'll come back. I'll remind me to tell you a story after this. When a more experienced candidate is passed up in favor of someone with less experience, your company can miss out on valuable wisdom, talent, and skill. And in this case, the woman loses out on an opportunity that she's well suited for. It says what to do. You could point out how experienced the woman is for the role and note the value of proven experience over potential. You might also take a moment to explain why it happens and why it matters. Longer term, it's worth recommending that everyone on your team aligns ahead of time on clear, objective criteria, because it would depend on the criteria for the role, right? For open roles. Then use them to evaluate all job candidates. This minimizes bias by making sure that every candidate is held to the same standard. And then this one says, research shows that people often hire or promote men based on their potential, but for women, potential isn't enough. Women are often held to a higher standard and need to show more evidence of their competence to get hired or promoted. So that's where the example
that's
comes from.
Interesting, because I think there's this I can't remember where this research is from, but it's quite commonly known actually that when women apply for jobs, they basically make sure that every box is ticked before they apply, whereas men, even if they tick 2 out of 5 boxes, they'll apply anyway. So that just goes to show that men inherently seem to have I'm generalizing here, but that research shows, the interviewing and the applications, that research shows that it says that women they need to be certain, they need to be 100% confident that they can do the role, and that eliminates potential, whereas men can see that they can do A, B, and C, but may not be able to D and E, and they they latch that onto potential and then apply.
Yeah, and that totally that actually marries with this. And it's like the chicken and the egg. Is it the women know that that's how they're held to a higher standard? So they have to meet all the criteria. Is it because they know it?
Yeah.
Or is it because they've got some self-esteem issue?
That's it. That's
right. It's like, well, which came first?
Right.
Yeah. So that's why it matters.
And also, the story that you were relating it to, Tracy.
Yeah, is my dad. So he was working in a job where for years, and he became very good at this job. And so much so that he would start to train people, new like graduates and things. He started to train them in the job. Yeah. And he would constantly get overlooked for promotion to the extent where people he trained got promoted over him. And he believed it was discrimination. And so he sued the company. Now, he didn't win. He decided to settle. So he settled and got a payout or whatever. So whether you believe it was racism or it wasn't, he thinks it was, and I'll assume it was, because he had the experience, and he's so much so that he could teach other people. But to constantly be overlooked, and he believed it was because he was Black. And that was why. And that was the attitude. So
which industry was this in, Tracy?
Oh, it was in like a printing industry. It was a long time ago.
Right.
So, and I mean, and then, my dad will tell you stories of discrimination he faced when he was living in Britain
was this in the 60s and 70s that he had this experience in printing?
No, this would be in the 80s.
The 80s,
90s, right. 80s, 90s.
So I'm thinking like how many, and in the printing industry, do you know like what sort of what sort of percentage was, not percentage, but do you know how many other minorities or people of color were working in the printing industry in the 80s, 90s?
In the general, no, it's not something I've ever researched. It's just the story he tells.
Yeah.
And it's stuck with me as well. And it's just an example. And I feel kind of like it's similar to this. I'm not saying those people that got promoted didn't have potential, but they didn't have the experience. And so how do you justify that in certain situations? But like it says here, like we've said, you need to agree before you need to agree on the criteria of what's going to be perfect. And if you can do that before you even interview people, you can already decide whether it's really good to have someone that maybe doesn't know the role so well, that has potential, or that whether you're really looking for someone with experience before you interview, then you can rule out that kind of bias.
Yeah. And also as an interviewer of a company, or of a role, if you've got a idea about, okay, yes, you want someone with more potential, but you end up interviewing someone who's experienced, ask those questions at interview about, and be transparent in terms of, okay, this is what we were looking for. How do you feel about this? What could you bring to the table? Or actually say, we were initially thinking that this would be a role where it'd have potential for the right candidate. However, you've got quite a lot of experience. How would you cope with that? And where would you see the areas of opportunity and potential for you in this role?
Yeah, good questions for sure. So there you go. Good combo. Well done. And then it made me think about when I've hired people. I remember the last person I hired before I left my career was someone that purely hired on experience. Purely. And actually we had the opposite problem in that this person had more experience than was needed, as in they're more senior. There was they're coming down.
Yeah.
So, but that's not, as long as we're clear about what's happening, which we were, to me, it's their decision.
Yeah.
Which was the case. I feel they were torn between opportunity and but then again, it's a risk because they might leave, they get a better opportunity and leave. But anyway, that was my decision making last time I hired someone.
It sounds though it was a case of identifying where that person's ceiling of potential was and seeing whether or not they were, hearing about whether or not, how were they planning to push through and smash through that ceiling of potential?
Well, yeah, I mean that was part of my job for like literally 5 minutes, because I wasn't there much longer. Was, okay, this person's overqualified or got more experience than we need. Can we also offer her a plan of a more advanced role in the company? What else could there be in a couple of years' time or whatever? So there was all that to consider. But yeah, that was my last experience. I haven't needed to hire anyone since. But yeah.
Oh, good.
All right, I'm going to let you go because I know you have a date.
Yes, we'll see how that goes. Let's see if he turns up.
Oh, don't say. Why would you even go with that thought?
Because I'm taking myself out. This is the approach I'm using. I'm taking myself out and then putting out the open invitations in, like, well, if you're available and free and you're interested in joining me, then please do.
Oh, so he didn't say yes, I will.
So how I'm doing it is I'm continuing on with what I normally do, and then extending out, saying, you know what, I'm doing this anyway. If you want to come along, it'd be great to find out more about you, an opportunity for you to learn about me.
Okay. So you're kind of, I mean, I don't know what you plan. So say it's kind of like, I'm going to be here doing this thing. If you want to come and meet me there, that'd be great. Up to you. But did he say, yes, I'll come?
Yes. So in a sense that, because it turned out, and I suppose it's by coincidence that what I'm going to be doing this afternoon, I normally do anyway, and it turns out like it's very similar. It was very near to where he lives,
right?
And so it's it's easy. It's and so we'll see. So in other words, if he doesn't turn up, that's fine, because I still would have done the activity anyway. But
all right, okay.
Then we'll see what happens.
All
I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know how it goes in our next episode.
Oh, I want to know before that. I can't wait that long. I can't wait that long. All right then. Bye, hun. Have a good time.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.